Claire held the wooden spoon in midair, steam rising around her hand. The kitchen felt too quiet. Outside, evening rain tapped lightly against the windows, but inside the house, once full of voices, there was only the low hum of the stove and the sound of Ethan shifting his weight near the counter. He had been back for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of polite nods, short answers, and doors closing softly behind him. Claire tried not to take it personally. Still, the distance hurt. She stirred the pot again. The smell of chicken broth, herbs, and vegetables filled the room. It was the kind of meal meant for cold nights and tired hearts. Ethan watched from a few feet away, arms crossed, backpack still slung over one shoulder as if he might leave again at any moment. "You hungry?" Claire asked, keeping her voice casual. He shrugged. "I ate earlier." She nodded, though she hadn't seen him touch anything since he came home from work. Claire poured a little into a small bowl anyway. "Just taste it," she said. "If you don't like it, that's fine." He hesitated. Years ago, when he was a teenager, she could read him easily. Now he felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face, older, taller, guarded. "I'm okay," he said. Claire lifted the spoon between them. "One bite." He looked at her, then at the pot, then back at her again. Something about the way she stood there, hopeful but nervous, made him sigh. "All right," he said. He leaned forward and took the spoon from her hand. Claire watched his face. Ethan tasted the soup. At first, nothing changed. Then his jaw slowed. His eyes flickered. He swallowed once. Claire's stomach tightened. "Well?" she asked. He didn't answer. The spoon hovered in his fingers. The silence stretched. "Ethan?" He blinked, as if waking from a thought he hadn't meant to visit. "It's good," he said slowly. She let out a breath. "Good?" "Yeah." He stared into the bowl. "Just didn't expect that." Claire frowned. "Did I overcook something?" He shook his head. "No. It's not that." He took another sip, smaller this time. Claire studied him. His shoulders had gone stiff. His eyes looked far away. She lowered the spoon back into the pot. "What is it, then?" He paused. "I haven't had anything like this in a long time." The words were careful. Claire waited. He exhaled through his nose. "My mom used to make soup like this." The name, Mom, hung quietly between them. Claire's heart dipped. "Oh," she said. He nodded once, not looking at her. Not exactly the same. But close enough. She hadn't known. She hadn't meant to open anything old or painful. "I'm sorry," Claire said. Ethan shook his head again, quicker this time. "No. It's not bad." He took another spoonful. "It just surprised me." Claire studied his face. The sharp edge he'd worn since coming home had softened just a little. She grabbed another bowl and filled it halfway. "Sit," she said gently. He blinked. "You don't have to." "I know. I want to." He hesitated, then slid onto the stool at the small kitchen table. Claire set the bowl in front of him. He stared at it for a second. Then started eating. Not fast. Not slow. Like someone trying to remember something without admitting it. Claire leaned against the counter, pretending to wipe it down while watching him from the corner of her eye. He finished half the bowl before looking up. "You still cook much?" he asked. "Sometimes," she said. "Not like before." He nodded, understanding more than she had said. The house had changed after Mark died. Everything had. "I'm glad you did tonight," Ethan added. The words surprised her. She looked at him. "Yeah?" He shrugged, but his voice was softer than before. "Yeah." Claire smiled before she could stop herself. It felt small. But important. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, the air felt warmer. And neither of them knew yet that this single spoonful had just shifted something they had both been avoiding for a very long time. Claire put the empty spoon back in the pot and wiped her hands on a towel, but she didn't move from where she was standing. Ethan sat at the table, staring at the last drops of soup in his bowl as if trying to catch a memory before it floated away. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It felt like something waiting to be said. "I didn't know you remembered that," Claire said softly, trying not to sound too curious. Ethan looked up. His eyes were distant, almost shadowed. "I don't, usually. It's been years." Claire leaned against the counter, letting the steam from the pot warm her face. "It's funny how food does that," she said. "Brings things back you didn't even know you missed." He nodded slowly. "Yeah. Mom, she made this when I was sick or when Dad was working late. I forgot how it tasted. And tonight, his voice trailed off. He stared down at the table, his fingers tracing the edge of the bowl. Claire felt a pang in her chest. She had known that his mother's memory was everywhere in the house, photos, routines, even the way he sometimes paused at certain doors, but hearing him speak about it made it real in a way that hit her unexpectedly. "You sound like you miss her," she said quietly. He didn't answer immediately. Then he took a deep breath. "I do, sometimes. It's weird. I thought I had moved past it. But this," he gestured to the bowl. "This brought it back." Claire swallowed hard. She hadn't expected him to open up like this, especially not after all the distance since he came back. She wanted to reach across the table, to say something comforting, but instead, she kept her hands clasped and nodded. "I'm glad it reminded you," she said. "Sometimes, remembering isn't a bad thing." Ethan smiled faintly, the kind of small, tentative smile that could vanish at any moment. "No, it's not. It's kind of nice, actually." The room was quiet again, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the clock. Claire poured herself a cup of tea and leaned against the counter, careful not to seem like she was intruding. "You cook like this often?" he asked, his tone softer than before. "Not as much," Claire admitted. "It felt strange after your dad, after everything changed." Ethan nodded again, his eyes on his now empty bowl. "Yeah. I get that. Things feel different now. And I guess I wasn't sure if I'd be welcome back." Claire's chest tightened. "You've always been welcome. You don't need to wonder that." He looked up at her then, really looked, as if seeing her for the first time in years. "I didn't know. I mean, with all this," he waved toward the kitchen, the house, the quiet. "I didn't know if it would feel like home." Claire set her cup down and stepped a little closer. "It is home, Ethan. Always has been." He let out a soft laugh, almost like a release he had been holding in for years. "I suppose it is." The conversation paused there, comfortable in its own way. Claire felt a strange mix of relief and nervous anticipation. She hadn't realized how much she wanted this moment, just him talking, being here, sharing a memory. Ethan glanced around the kitchen, his gaze lingering on the worn wooden table, the spice jars on the counter, the little notes she kept stuck to the fridge. "I almost didn't come back here," he said, quieter this time. "I thought, maybe it would be too hard." Claire's heart thumped. "I understand. It's been hard for all of us." He nodded, shoulders heavy. "Yeah. But, it's good I came back. I needed to see this. To see you. I don't know, it just feels right now." Claire blinked. She didn't know what to say. The words hung between them, soft but full of weight. She realized that this, just being here, sharing something as simple as a meal, was the beginning of something neither of them had expected. The evening light outside faded into dusk, casting a golden glow across the kitchen. Ethan finally set down his spoon, looking at her with an expression that was open, honest, and almost vulnerable. Claire smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the soup. I'm glad you're here, she said softly. Me too, he replied, the words quiet but steady. And in that moment, for the first time since he had returned, the tension between them seemed to ease. The past, with all its memories and pain, wasn't gone, but maybe, just maybe, it was starting to blend with something new. Something gentle, something hopeful. They didn't know it yet, but this night, the taste of soup, the shared memories, the quiet honesty, was a small turning point. A door had been opened. And neither of them would ever see the kitchen the same way again. The rain tapped harder against the windows that evening, like a steady rhythm pulling the house into quiet reflection. Claire stood at the counter, watching Ethan move through the kitchen with a calm that surprised her. He had picked up a dish and begun drying it without a word, the small sounds of clinking and dripping filling the space between them. Thanks, Claire said, her voice soft. She wasn't sure why she felt the need to speak. Ethan glanced at her, shrugged lightly, and continued. The gesture wasn't dismissive, it was simple, practical, almost like an apology for taking up space with words. You know, he said after a pause, I almost didn't come back here. Claire stopped wiping the counter. Why? His hands froze on the plate for a moment before he set it down. The house, it still feels like him. Like it's full of your dad. I wasn't sure if you wanted me around. Claire's chest tightened. She hadn't expected him to say that out loud. She had assumed he knew, assumed he understood that he had always belonged here. Ethan, this is your home, she said firmly. He nodded slowly, looking down at the counter, then back at her. I know. I didn't know if you'd moved on, if you were starting over. You've been alone a long time. Claire felt a rush of warmth, followed by an unexpected pang of embarrassment. The truth was, she had tried to move forward, but it hadn't been easy. Life had been measured in quiet mornings and empty chairs. I haven't been very good at that, she admitted. Ethan's eyes softened, and he looked at her in a way she hadn't seen before. Not the guarded gaze of a young man wary of his surroundings, but something more human, more honest. There's a guy, he said suddenly, surprising her. 2 houses down. Silver truck. Walks a golden retriever. Claire blinked. What? He keeps looking at you when you get the mail. Her cheeks warmed. He does not. Ethan smirked, that half-smile that showed both teasing and truth. I'm serious. Every morning. Claire crossed her arms, half amused, half flustered. Well. I hadn't noticed. He tilted his head slightly. Maybe you should. The words lingered in the air, soft and unexpected. Claire felt a small thrill she hadn't experienced in years, a spark that reminded her of the world outside grief and routine. She hid her smile behind her mug. Ethan set down the last dish he was drying and looked at her, serious now. Dad wouldn't want you lonely. Claire swallowed. His words weren't a scold or judgment, they were gentle, filled with care. Thank you, she said. They stood there for a moment, not speaking, just existing in the same space. The rain outside had slowed, and the kitchen felt warmer than it had in months. Claire realized she had forgotten the simple joy of companionship, of someone noticing her life in small ways. Ethan glanced at the stove. Soup again, he asked lightly, teasing but curious. Claire smiled, a little mischievously. Thought I'd experiment. He chuckled. Okay. I trust your experiments. She poured another bowl and handed it to him. This time, he took it without hesitation, savoring it with a quiet patience. Claire leaned against the counter, watching him, noticing every little shift, his relaxed posture, the way he finally let his guard drop, the small smile that lingered after each bite. You know, he said between spoonfuls, this soup, it's better than I remember. Claire laughed softly, a sound that seemed to echo in the empty kitchen, filling spaces she hadn't realized were so empty. Glad I could improve on your memories, she said. He looked at her, eyes steady. You always did better than anyone expected. Even your soup. The comment made her heart flutter, light and strange. Claire felt a quiet closeness she hadn't known was missing, a gentle bond forming over shared memories, laughter, and unspoken understanding. Outside, the rain stopped completely, leaving the street slick and quiet. Inside, the house was no longer just a place of memories or grief. It felt alive again, filled with the warmth of connection, of a bond that could grow, even in the smallest moments. Claire realized something as she watched him. She hadn't just made soup tonight. She had offered a space for healing, for trust, for closeness that neither of them had expected. And in return, Ethan had given her something just as precious: acknowledgement, presence, and care. He finished his bowl and looked up, finally meeting her gaze fully. "I'm glad I came back," he said. Claire smiled, the words catching in her throat. "Me too," she said, quietly, fully. The evening stretched on around them, soft and warm. A simple meal, shared memories, gentle teasing, and honest words had shifted something between them. Claire knew it was only the beginning, and neither of them knew where it would lead, but for the first time in a long time, the house felt like it had room for both the past and something new. And in that quiet warmth, both Claire and Ethan realized, sometimes, the smallest gestures, a taste of soup, a shared laugh, could open doors you didn't even know were closed. The next morning, Claire stepped onto the porch with her mug of coffee, the cool mist curling around her. The rain had stopped, leaving the street shiny and quiet, the kind of morning that made the world feel new. She took a slow sip, letting the warmth fill her hands, and let her eyes wander. That's when she saw it. A silver truck rolled down the street. Beside it, a golden retriever trotted happily, tail wagging. And walking with the dog was a tall man in a gray jacket. He glanced at her, then waved. Claire froze. For a moment, she wasn't sure how to respond. She raised her hand slowly and waved back, feeling a small flutter in her chest she hadn't felt in years. "Morning," she muttered to herself, smiling despite the sudden rush of nerves. From behind her, a familiar voice broke the quiet. "Told you." Ethan was leaning against the doorframe, stretching casually. His hair was damp from the morning air, and he looked relaxed in a way he hadn't been for weeks. Claire turned to look at him, raising an eyebrow. "He's probably just friendly," she said, trying to sound confident. Ethan smirked. "Uh-huh. Friendly. Every morning, right? Watching you get the mail." Claire hid a laugh behind her mug. "Well, maybe I'll just have to notice him now." He tilted his head, playful and teasing. "Exactly." She shook her head, smiling genuinely now. It felt strange and good to have this lightness between them, a moment that didn't carry the weight of grief or distance. Later that day, Claire found herself in the kitchen again. She had already begun making another pot of soup, her movements quick and easy, her mind still replaying the morning encounter. She didn't notice Ethan watching her from the doorway until she turned. "Round two?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Claire laughed softly. "Maybe. Thought I'd experiment a little." He approached, curiosity mixed with amusement in his eyes. He took a careful sip from the bowl she handed him, pausing as the flavors hit him. "Okay," he said slowly, smiling. "That one's better." Claire felt warmth creep into her chest. There was something simple and beautiful in these small gestures, sharing a meal, teasing, noticing the world around them together. It reminded her that connection didn't have to be loud or dramatic, sometimes it was quiet, gentle, and steady. Ethan took another spoonful, and she leaned against the counter, watching him. He looked at ease, almost like the house itself had welcomed him back fully. His guard had fallen in small, subtle ways, the way he laughed softly, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, the way he seemed to notice the little things around him. "You know," he said between bites, "you're really good at this." Claire chuckled. "At making soup? Or at catching someone off guard with it?" He laughed lightly, a sound that felt warm and natural, filling the empty spaces of the kitchen. "Both." The words, simple as they were, carried a weight she hadn't expected. She realized that in offering him a taste of something comforting, she had opened a door, not just to memories, but to trust, to closeness, and to moments like this. Outside, the neighbor's dog barked in the distance. Inside, the house felt alive again, not with memories of the past, but with present warmth and laughter. Claire noticed how different everything seemed, the morning light streaming through the windows, the scent of the soup, the quiet understanding that had grown between them. Ethan set his bowl down, finally meeting her gaze fully. "I'm glad I came back," he said, his voice steady. Claire felt her chest tighten with something gentle, almost like relief. "Me too," she said softly, her smile genuine and open. They lingered in the kitchen for a few more minutes, not needing to fill the silence with words. The soup, the morning walk of the neighbor, the small teasing, everything had created a sense of connection that neither of them had expected. Claire realized something important: she hadn't just offered her stepson a taste of soup. She had offered him space, attention, and care. And in return, he had offered her presence, honesty, and a lightness she hadn't realized she had been missing. As she watched him finally leave the kitchen, bowl cleaned and appetite satisfied, she felt a quiet hope stir inside her. Life had changed. The house felt different. The future felt open. And in that small, warm kitchen, surrounded by the scent of herbs and chicken broth, Claire understood something simple and profound. Sometimes, it was the little gestures, the small shared moments, that opened doors to healing, connection, and maybe even new beginnings. Neither of them knew what would come next. But for now, the house felt full again, not with the past, but with possibilities, laughter, and a gentle promise of something more. The day was just beginning, and so was a new chapter for both of them. The silver truck and golden retriever might return. Neighbors might wave. But Claire felt something far more significant: the quiet, unexpected start of hope, closeness, and a gentle warmth that could grow into something neither of them had expected.